Owen and Richard Branson have become pioneers of management. Okay, so now in the 21st century, businesses have to deal with a paradox. On the one hand, try and run everything as efficiently as possible, but on the other hand, keep changing and adapting to customers' new needs and wants. Management philosophies and organisational forms have had to change to new needs. Yet some ideas and practices are still relevant and applicable to management today. Therefore, a study of past contributions can help us understand where businesses have come from and where we stand today and for the future. Robert Owen and Richard Branson management styles have been significantly affected by social, political and economic forces that surrounded them at the time. Therefore, this presentation aims to discover their contribution and approach against their contextual backdrops, which Christina will now explain in detail.
So, although the two pioneers are vastly different in both their context and their business models, we can draw parallels in their approaches to management thinking. The garden metaphor describes a humanistic approach. This theory advocates that enterprises should focus on stimulating motivation, activity and creativity. Owen can be seen as a pioneer in this ideology because he focused on changing the external environment of the workforce to improve their productivity. Richard Branson is also a strong believer in the humanistic approach because he focuses on empowering decisions in employees and putting them into action. Both these humanistic managers concentrated on the welfare of employees. However, this will be explored in further slides. Another key approach that signals similarities is their innovation. Owen applied community living in his mills in the 1800s, and this vastly contrasts the harsh working conditions of the Industrial Revolution. Richard Branson also has innovation in his risk in delegating important responsibility to his workforce or branching into other areas of business. Now these approaches will be explored in depth.
Okay, so although Richard Branson and Robert Owen have some similarities between their management approach, there are some very stark differences. The garden metaphor can be applied to Robert Owen's approach, but it's better described as humanistic management. This is where the manager focuses on the external environment of the employees in order to increase the productivity of the workers. So Robert Owen's motivation for increasing the welfare of his employees was different to Richard Branson's because he was focused on increasing the productivity of his workers rather than increasing creativity as Richard Branson does. Robert Owen was focused mainly on changing the external environment of his employees, as shown by the first quote here. However, he did much to improve the lives of his employees and introduced new managerial practices, such as is shown in the second quote by the new approach to introducing bars of measures of productivity for his workers. However, Robert Owen's approach to management, although he was a pioneer, was overshadowed by industrialist thought for the Industrial Revolution, and so he gained very little followers compared to Richard Branson.
Okay, so Richard Branson is also a practitioner of the garden metaphor. However, he also shows qualities of a transformational leader, and as a transformational leader, he is able to understand the needs and concerns of his followers and his employees, and he motivates and inspires his employees and acts as a role model towards them, so that they follow his ethics as well. He creates a sense of identity for each employee within the organisation, so that they feel connected to the company, and they feel motivated to strive to create a better future for the company, and following his ethics also for society, as shown by the first quote, where it says they want to contribute something to society. He shows confidence in his employees' abilities and encourages them to perform at their very highest levels, and he carefully selects his employees and hires them based on how bright they are and motivated, and then they can apply their own skills to work that is delegated by Richard Branson to different managers within the company. Also within Richard Branson's management style, there's emphasis on intellectual human capital. So rather than just viewing his labour force or his employees as a method of production where he can get the highest productivity out of them, he wants to see their own individuality, which is unlike Owen in his factories. He recognises each employee's abilities and views them as assets to the company, which is shown in the second quote, where he says people are by far and away the biggest assets. Each employee is different, and he recognises each employee's different skills and the creative ideas that they can lend to the company, which gives them a creative change.
Management philosophies and organizational forms are consistently changing to meet new and current needs of the consumer market. This quote here illustrates the importance of context and shows how Owen's philosophies were eclipsed by Taylor's due to the introduction of the Industrial Revolution. There are three forces that affect this context and the external forces. These are social, political, and economical. The social forces have changed largely since Owen's time. An example of this is Generation X and Y. During Owen's time, workers were seen as being unmotivated and unskilled. However, in this day, because of the growth of egoism and individualism in the Western culture, Generation X and Y are seen as loving and challenging work environment. This has affected their management styles due to the resources available to them and has allowed Branson to adopt a laissez-faire approach to management. However, this was not available to Owen. In addition to this, the rise of celebrity culture has allowed Branson to secure their Virgin brand name and image, and it has catapulted the Virgin Empire as being perceived as a safe and reliable brand. In Owen's time, there was no celebrity culture. Instead, there was a more traditional culture that was less open to new ideas. The second force is political. The dominance of the free market system and the development of capitalism has allowed Branson to have more flexibility as he explores many new aspects and factors within the business world. Economic is the last factor. Industries have shifted their focus from the secondary and tertiary sector to the quaternary sector, which focuses on innovation and creativity in its products and services. This, in conjunction with globalization, has allowed Branson to explore the opportunities in new markets as he diversifies the Virgin brand. These external factors, however, were not available to Owen. Branson and Owen have very similar traits and attributes. However, the context and external factors that surrounded them determined the level of awareness and acceptance of their philosophies.
Both these practitioners have contributed greatly to management thinking. Sadly, in Owen's time, where there are child labor and poor working conditions, his thoughts were not as well accepted nor appreciated by the practitioners. Hence the quote, "They couldn't attract followers." Yet there are some major management theories that they've put across for managers and businesses to follow nowadays. Firstly, branding. Branson has made himself and his company, the Virgin Group, well identified. This gives him higher recognition, higher trust, and more importantly, brand loyalty. Secondly, Branson has managed to diverse his company into all kinds of industries, from airlines to wedding planners. Diversity allows for risk spreading, and together with branding, give him comparative advantage when entering entirely new industries. Furthermore, social culture dimension is an unwritten contract between the employees and the management, promoting the growing focus on work-life balances. Due to Owen's situation, theories were not applied at his time. However, his thoughts mentioned above were long-lived and have been used and practiced by many great managers since.
So to conclude, both Robert Owen and Richard Branson were in favour of employee welfare and the wider community. But external factors within their individual context has meant Robert Owen was overshadowed by industrialists, whereas Richard Branson has been brought into the public eye. The current socio-cultural dimension of today has meant we have reverted back to what Owen's originality. But in addition to this, the tertiary sector has meant we need more creativity, not just productivity. So Owen's management style has been extended for the 21st century. Both management thinking has proven to withstand over centuries and been brought to the present day and be incorporated into business processes.